Hey everyone, welcome to the Front Row Back Row podcast. Brian and I have each grown physical therapy businesses to 2 million plus in annual revenue. We're looking to get good advice to PTs trying to grow their practices. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to the Front Row Back Row podcast. My name is Dr. Owen Campbell, and with me as always is Dr. Brian Wolf, and together we are Physio Growth. So today we are going to be talking about basically how we name ourselves, right? So I have a mobile cash only or cash based physical therapy practice is how people would typically call it. And then Brian has a practice where he's hybrid. So half of his business comes in from insurance based physical therapy. The other half comes in from other services like fitness, wellness, that type of stuff. So he's more 50-50. He's not 100% insurance. But the thing we're going to talk about is like, I don't know about you, man, but like, I'm pretty sure Home Depot doesn't call itself like a credit card based, hardware store,
Such a
right?
good
Like
analogy.
nobody says like, oh yeah, no, I'm a check based, grocery store, right? I get it because you're talking about a third party payer where all those businesses don't have third party payers, right? But there's a big difference, I think, between cash. Are you cash based or are you insurance based? Right. And then everyone says, well, I hate insurance. So if you're doing insurance, it must be awful. Or people are saying, well, if you're doing cash based, all you're doing is basically treating rich people's hangnails. What are you actually doing? Right.
Yeah.
So there's this kind of back and forth in the PT community. And Brian and I basically, if you ask us that question, we just say, you just better be a damn good business owner. Right.
Yes.
And that's what I think I want to kind of like talk about. What I want to talk about today is just, understanding the fact that like how you accept payment is a lot less important than if you're a good business owner.
Yeah.
I've met people who are amazing cash-based business owners. They are on it. They got contracts with this, they're blah, 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 they're doing all that stuff. I've also met some that are like, well, I don't know, it's just a job, I guess, and again, the same thing in the insurance realm where there is like freaking on the button, insurance based PTs. And then there's other ones where you're like, oh my God, how are you? They tell me how terrible it is. And oh my God, everything's going to crap. And I'm just sitting there like, I mean, I know a lot of insurance-based PTs who are killing it right now. So
Yeah.
I think the big difference, for anybody trying to grow is how much of a business owner you are. So I don't know. I wanted to get your thoughts on it, Brian, because you kind of live both lives, right? You've lived the cash pay PT, and then when you first started out as kind of your entry point into business ownership, and then you pivoted to your hybrid model where a lot of the PT is through insurance, but you're also doing a lot of like fitness, wellness stuff. So I'd love to. You've been both, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So have I, to a fact, but I didn't own the company. So
I think it really determines, and it's not to get hokey here, but determines on what your mission is in this profession, your career, right?
yeah,
Is it and in your life, to be honest, because if you join, anything in healthcare, you're really trying to help people, right? That's why we did this. I remember saying to my mom when I was in high school, going to college, trying to figure out what I want to do in my life. I was like, I really want to make money, right? That'd be good. I wanted to work with athletes, and I wanted to, help people. That's what I wanted
yeah,
to do. And physical therapy fit all those bills, right?
yeah.
Maybe less about the money piece, but the other stuff, right?
Yeah.
So when I
Yeah,
looked at
you can make a good
exactly,
living, huh?
you do okay, exactly.
Yeah,
So when you think about it as a career, I think one of the things that a lot of people think about is they're not particularly patient, right?
yeah,
As they start to build their business. And I think if you want to be a business owner and you want to be an operator in that direction, it's like, what do you want to do? Do you want to be an entrepreneur that builds their own business? Do you want to work with somebody who can build their own business? Like, what do you want to do to find, what your niche is in life and how you grow that? And I think that, one of the things that Owen and I had talked about in the past when he was first, getting kind of frustrated with Athletico and what he was doing with the company, right? I think one of the things he talked about was, I really want to do something. He had always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, me and Owen have known each other half our lives. And the biggest thing that I would say about Owen is we would always have business conversations. And I was always like struck by how much he knew about that stuff and how interested he was. And we were all on the same page, right? You have these friends in physical therapy for most people listening to this, right? And so when we would talk about this, and then eventually he was like, listen, I want to go start my own practice. I said, this is going to work really well based on where you want to go, right?
Mhm.
Opening up your own clinic, much like Athletico. And what people don't realize is when it gets to where Athletico is, it takes a ton of time. It takes a ton
Yeah.
of time. And it's okay. This is in the tech industry where you develop some, like we've talked about with I think about Paul Sim, we talked about this, right? He was like, you don't have to create your own market. You
Yeah.
don't. But what happens is you're going into a market that's already decently set up. So what
Yeah.
happens is, it's not like physical therapy is non-existent. It's not like there's mobile PTs that's not existent. It's not like there's, you're to innovate this profession is going to be a little challenging. And the person who does it, good for you, you're going to kill it.
Yeah.
But it's probably not going to be on one-on-one care, right? For
Yeah.
those people who are listening to this, right? So anyway,
That
go. I know
that's
you.
and that's what I want to break down. I think the important thing with what you said is like what impact you want to have, right?
Yes.
And I always go back to this and I say, like, I think I get it, right? A new grad or even someone who's been out 5, 6 years, and I wouldn't say new grad, because most new grads aren't going right into business. They want to learn. They know that, an insurance based practice, they're going to see more people. They can focus on clinical care. They don't have to think about marketing and business ownership and all that. Some of them do, but most don't, right? Um, but once you hit that point of your career where you're at that like 3 year, I would always say the 2 to 3 year mark is where a clinician becomes very confident, right? And they start getting referrals because, people know them in the neighborhood and all that. And I think honestly, the cash pay push has been a reaction to the fact that like market conditions, right?
Yeah.
Private equities going in and buying up a bunch of stuff. They want a 4x return on their investment within 3 years, and if they don't get it, they terrify the C-suite, and then the C-suite goes and yells at the managers, and the managers yells at the PT, and you got to see more people, right?
Yeah.
And I think what is happening is people are seeing, inflation going up. Every other industry is making a bunch of money, and they can charge cash, and it's not as big of a percentage in especially like urban high value or high income markets, right?
Yeah.
So again, perfect, awesome, do it, right? Get that money. I'm doing it right now. I can't say anything against it, right? But the best impact you're going to have, right? Because you'll run into that cash pay wall of like, well, I want the owner, right? And you'll be cycling through contractors and things like that. So you're not going to be able to scale probably much past like 2 or 3 full-time therapists, right? And if you do, great, but it's very, very challenging. Your impact is going to be right. If you see one an hour and you're driving all over hell and all that stuff, your impact is maybe going to be a caseload of 30 patients, right?
Yeah.
You're probably going to bring into your practice in a year maybe 200 unique people, right? And that's very, very positive. If you're just trying to be a solopreneur, you're going to impact maybe 100 people a year, right? In a good year, right? um so okay, what's your impact, right? Like 100 people is a class in college, right?
Yeah.
Like, or you can say I want the whole community to have really high level care, right? And you say, well, with insurance, you can't do high level care. It's like, no, you can, right? I've
For
worked for
sure.
people. Brian's a person who does this where you can make a pretty decent living and keep your business going and not see 20 people a day with a tech, right? You can do it one on one with 12 people, right?
Yep.
Um, and if you then have the skill to be a business owner and you pivot from like a good PT to a good business owner, you can have a pretty damn good impact on the community. I mean, not to pump Brian up, so I won't. I will say my old boss, but I mean, she created a business where it was very patient forward, 11, 10 people a day, right? And now Phoenix has 20 locations that you can expect therapists to be one-on-one care, 10 people a day, right? Now private equity bought them and they want higher things now, but like you can still build that business. And
For
Brian's
sure.
currently doing it now. She sold 2 or 3 years ago. So that's where when everybody says like I want to impact my community, I want a great impact on people, I think, dude, look at the numbers, right?
Yeah.
Like in a year, you treat a classroom where Brian's treating a town, a small town in upstate New York, right? Like
Well,
the amount of new patients he get could fill my high school, the entire town that I grew up in.
well, and I'll pass it back to that rate to that point. Like what ended up happening to me was, we basically I was at that point in Cash PT where I was just working a million hours and I was
Mhm.
treating a lot of patients, and I realized, you know what, like I really want to figure out the next step here. It wasn't even like I had a specific goal in mind, but I knew I was like, there's a next step I got to make to figure out how to make this more sustainable while also spending time with my family, because that was one of my major things I wanted to do. That was the goal, while also continuing, to your point, making a bigger impact, right? And going big and trying to grow. And so that's some evolution and this partnership that we've built and what we've done and how we've built this whole company and grown. Like, and it's at the same grassroots. So like if people individual, like we're doing that, like that's why we championed it and grew it. Now I've grown it. It's grown beyond my wildest dreams as a whole cohort. And we've watched it grow across the country. And so that's what happens is, just because there's like-minded people that want to team up and grow together doesn't mean that anybody, like we talked about this, like it's a business mentality. It's not a individual physical therapy. Now, if someone's like, hey, I just want to do everything exactly the way I want to do it, only the way I want to do it, and grow it that way, cool. That's cool. That's on you to do it that way, right? If someone's like, for us, if people want to build stuff within, like we have somebody who's building some stuff within, I think what he's doing is tremendous. Like how he's building his own kind of, his own following and what we're doing, what we're trying to do with this, with the golf programs and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of different really cool ways that people can grow in their careers by learning specific skills, like business skills that they can help to grow, right? I think that's the key. Is we think about physical therapy and go, I just really want to be a good physical therapist. And the reality is you're one trick pony if you do that, right? And then it pigeonholes you in your career. And that's what makes people feel so stuck is, I really just want to treat my patients. I really want to do one-on-one care. I really want to do this. Well, there's also an aspect of like what we talk about here. You got to learn marketing, you got to learn sales, you got to learn, interpersonal skills, because I think that's a big piece of it. It's not just your clinical ability, and expertise. Now, I'm not saying that's not a good thing to have that, because of course it is. However, you also got to make sure that you're taking the time to grow your practice and business, specifically to where you want it.
Well, and
Right.
think about that too. Like the cash PTs that have grown. And I mean, to be fair, there are some companies out there that are fully cash and they have, 2, 3 full-time PTs, right? But if you talk to those owners, and we have, they're usually unicorns. Like they're usually really, really good at business stuff, right? They
For sure.
understand lead generation and contracts and figuring out the patient experience and how do I make sure that patient's tied to me, not my contractor. And they're constantly doing all this stuff, and they just chose to go the cash pay route, right? So those are the types of things that, even if you want to just make a bigger impact than just what you can do, you have to learn that stuff, right? And
For
you have
sure.
to learn how to make it so it sustains. Because I can also tell you, there's ones that I've seen that have done that route where they try and add 1 or 2 therapists, and they sink, right? They're like, oh my god, I'm paying out this much and I lose so many people because they don't understand like where their leads are coming from and what the customer experience is, and are they tied to them or the company, or the PT or the company. So like these are all kind of business minded things that, regardless of how you take patients, you have to
Yes.
you have to do it right. Now, of course, I have been I managed a team of like 40 therapists, right? I think I hired about 100 people in my previous life in corporate PT. So to me, I'm always going to say like, oh yeah, I'd like to have a big team. Like I'm used to doing that. I'm good at it, right? And of course, Brian's in the same boat. But even if all you want is just a bigger impact with your cash base, like you still got no business.
100%.
you
100%.
you can still fail. you know
That's the
um,
difference.
and now the nice thing is PTs, like, you can always go back and get a job, and I know some people who have, right, where they're like, well, this sucked. I hated figuring out how to wrestle, herd cats, with
Yeah.
contractors. So I said, screw it, I'm just gonna go back to like working for somebody for a percentage, right? Okay, like that's fine. Just realize that the pivot you have to make is understanding how to build.
And I think something that we've talked about on some of these other podcasts is that pivoting is not failure, right?
Nope.
Pivoting is not failure. Pivoting is growth in a lot of
Yeah.
ways, right? As long as you're not just pivoting to pivot. Like I think a lot of
If you only
people have,
made running shoes.
yeah, exactly. I think when it comes to pivoting in this scenario, one of the things that I think can derail people is that they're pivoting in so many different directions and splitting their time.
Yeah.
Putting in the time, being patient and growing at one specific thing in a vision and where you're trying to grow, right, is not a bad thing, right? It's
Yeah.
something that takes time. And as you build more and more time, it can make a huge impact in that way, which is huge. So I think that's the key that I think for most PTs is there's an aspect of how do I learn business skills? How do I think more specifically about being tactical? How do I solve true problems that I want to solve. Like those are all really good things to think about. For
Yeah,
sure.
and I think that's what we try and help people with in our mentorship group is we created this thing just because we realized there's a lot of like how to be a cash pay PT books and starter programs and all that. And then we kind of looked at it and said like, okay, that's fine, but there's also real business stuff out here. Like some stuff fails, and that we've seen people fail, right? We've either gone and bought them and caught a falling knife as it's
Yes.
going down, or we've seen them succeed, and we've done it ourselves, but we've also been around long enough. So hopefully, anybody listening to this podcast who wants to get real business advice from real business owners, I think I'm going to see a patient soon, and so is Brian.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
just check out our website www.physio-growth.com. It'll have a link in there for our mentorship group. It's $100 a month. If you get Starbucks every day, it's cheaper than that. The old Starbucks economics reference,
I
right?
love that.
I mean,
I love
anybody
that.
who gets Starbucks every single day is probably not a business owner.
Yeah. Exactly. I tell people. I
All the
tell
ones I know have like pre-made tuna sandwiches like every day for like 6 days.
exactly. We are trying to help PTs create the career and the life that they want and make more impact on more people. So
Yeah,
that's the whole thing of the mission of what we're trying to do. So yeah, if you're interested in learning more and growing your career as a physical therapist, join us.
cool. All right, buddy.
Cool.
We are out.
All right,
Have a
man.
good one.
Sounds good. See ya.